Thank you, Jan, for being here today, but more importantly, what you do every day to make West Virginia a better place. Please join me in welcoming Jan to our summit.
Wow, thank you so much. And I'm very grateful that I was asked to be here today. And this is something near and dear to my heart. I bust on Mayor Williams all the time for giving me a title which I cannot make a good acronym out of. So I made my PowerPoint presentation yesterday. I had to throw in the green because I was at the game on Saturday. It was fabulous, gracious fans. Notre Dame is a class act. So, with that being said, and oh, by the way, when they sent me the email about, oh, you've been chosen to be Time 100, on Time 100, I thought it was firefighters punking me. So I did not respond right away because we are known for our practical jokes. Let's just say that. So, being an old medic, became a medic in West Virginia, I'm gonna say 96, maybe 97. Worked on my days off from the fire department as a paramedic. Then I went to nursing school at age 40. What was I thinking? But I'm glad I did, and that's when I let my EMS card lapse. But I have a great fondness for people on the front lines. When I took this position, I told Mayor Williams that I must keep my hands on what is going on the front lines, and so he allows me to work one day a week at Harmony House in Huntington, where Dr. Cindy McElroy provides free medical care for the homeless. And even for me, it's eye-opening, so that tells you a lot about the front lines right now. It is ever changing, and people in police, fire, EMS, first responders, we don't like how it is, and we don't like change, so there you go. That's why it makes this so difficult. But I certainly don't think what we're dealing with is insurmountable. Throughout my presentation, you'll be given information about one way we're trying to make a difference in Huntington for our first responders. This model has been developed to be replicated not only through the state of West Virginia, but the country. In fact, we have the International Association of Fire Chiefs visiting on the 20th of September to see our facility. And I open it up to anybody who wants to come down to Huntington and see what we are doing. But I think it's imperative that we spend a lot of time working with our first responders. It's very difficult because, there's a stigma with substance use disorder. Well, there's a stigma with seeking mental health counseling around the ranks of our first responders, and that's huge. 27 and a half years on the fire department, and I dealt with 3 suicides, and they were senseless. And the last one was in 2018 while I was fire chief, and I don't wish that on anybody. And I'm sure it's an underreported number nationwide, but more firefighters, police officers, EMS workers die of their own hand than in the line of duty now, and that change started around 2017. It coincides with the epidemic that unfolded across the country. We're trained to save lives, and it's very frustrating for your frontline workers right now. I include mental health workers, behavioral health workers, ER nurses. I don't need this, do I? Can you all hear me if I walk around? Because I'm a walker. So, most people think Huntington, West Virginia is the epicenter of this epidemic. I don't think that's true. I do think that it hit with us first in Appalachia. We were targeted. Let's face it, we were targeted. But just to give you a sense of what is not just happening in Huntington, across the state and across the region, around 81 million prescription painkillers were shipped over an 8-year period to Cabell County. Okay, that is incredible considering, the population is 91,000. Now, just for reference, the city of Huntington is about 46,000. When I talk overdoses, probably 85% on average of those overdoses and deaths happen within the city limits of Huntington. So, 2010 to 2011, overdoses began to explode because people moved away from pills into heroin, and a needle was introducing the substance into their body, which created all kinds of medical issues. So why did that happen here in West Virginia? Why that switch at that time? Anybody familiar with what happened? A lot of people in this area were flying on cheap flights down to Florida, buying thousands of pills at pill mills and bringing them back. So I think it was in June of 2011, legislation went into effect in Florida that stopped pill mills. And, a lot of people didn't understand substance use disorder, and they thought it would go away, and it did not, of course. So, our peak remains 2017, and I hope we never surpass that again, but that was a rough year, for your frontline workers, your EMS workers, all together. So we've been working in Huntington. If you know Steve Williams, you know that the man does not take no for an answer, and he wants to do what's best for his people. So we started a lot of initiatives, and he does not want Huntington to be known for the center of the epidemic. We are going to be known for the center of solutions, and we have a lot of wonderful programs that we have started, such as PROACT. Quick Response Team does amazing work. Just love them. PROACT does amazing work. That's 4 medical competitors in the same building, a freestanding facility where you can get help. We need more of those. We need more of those. So, but of course, then we have COVID come along. Okay, so that creates isolation, fear, barriers, and by the way, you can distribute this PowerPoint. I mean, we share everything in Huntington. We're very transparent about what we do, and we will share it with you if you like. So, 2021 was rough again. The numbers went back up. We found a lot of people deceased, and not just from substance use disorder. We found a lot of elderly people during this time frame deceased, and we think a lot of fear kept people from going to the hospital or picking up their heart medication. So it was very tough for the people on the front lines. So keep in mind that we have an ever-changing product on the street. We have no control over that. Okay, right now it is polysynthetic. It is methamphetamines that is grown in a lab mixed with very strong fentanyl. Okay, that's what you have right now. I think drug dealers are getting a little lazy. They don't want to tend to crop where it's weather dependent when they can make more money. So we certainly have a responsibility to work on the demand side, and that's where we need to focus. So effects on our first responders. Obviously, you all in this room know what we're dealing with. When I started in '94 on the fire department, I saw death occasionally. I had time to recover. I would see Mama or Papa die from a stroke or a heart attack. I didn't see overdoses, okay? And when I started running as a paramedic, I didn't see overdoses, okay? And then it started gradually changing. Then you had pill overdoses, and we knew they were pill overdoses because the bottles would be laying around, okay? And then it just took off in 2011 to 2013. It just started going up exponentially. And it's tough for somebody who's trained to save lives to see that same person over and over again, and then you find them deceased. And not only that, I might have gone to school with them, okay? At one point, I had a firefighter that had been on 12 of his classmates' deaths. That's what your first responders are dealing with today, okay? So that's a lot on them, okay? So, it affects everything about what we do, right? Okay, and another thing you gotta keep in mind is first responder agencies are paramilitary agencies, okay? We have to follow rules, okay? We do as we're told, okay? We set policy, you have to follow that, okay? So you're talking about a group of men and women who are soldiers, and they get no say in anything that's happening, okay? And they have to have a voice to get through this, and that's what we found in Huntington, okay? We named our program Compass Navigating Wellness, so that's what I'm gonna talk a little bit about today. It is a comprehensive program designed to ensure that every first responder is equipped with the resources and support necessary to build personal resiliency and to cultivate a culture of wellness within their department and across the community as a whole. Okay, we actually were given a task by Mayor Williams. He said, Bloomberg Mayor's Challenge Grant, I want you to come up with a proposal. And we chose compassion fatigue with our first responders. Okay? At that time, we didn't know if we would get it. We have control. The City of Huntington runs police and fire, and the county runs EMS. That's why they're not with us in this. We can't, tell them what to do, but we try to share resources with Gordon Mary and Calvin County EMS as best we can. This was a Bloomberg Philanthropies grant. We were one of 35 cities chosen out of about over 300 to test an idea. So they gave us 8 months and $100,000 to test the idea that we had to deal with compassion fatigue, okay? And guess what happened during that 8 months? We had some serious epic fails, and we thought there is no way they're gonna give us the $1 million, after this was done. But we learned so much from those failures, okay? We started having small focus groups. We found out that you cannot force people to participate. You cannot force an education on them without giving them a voice to deal with what they are experiencing on the front lines. It's a very different culture, and we need to take that into consideration. So, right now, and of course, police, fire also have the same problem with keeping people. During my tenure as a fire chief, I'd hire 10, I'd lose 5 out of that 10, typically within the first 6 months that they were on the job. So currently we have about 87 firefighters and 91 police officers in Huntington. That is well below what we are budgeted for as a city, okay? The call volume went up significantly for us, so I know it went up for all EMS agencies throughout the state. We did a little bit of quick math, and during 2017, the year that we had 202 overdose deaths and 1,831 non-fatal overdoses in the county, probably the average firefighter at our busy station saw a minimum of 5 deaths per month. And that's significant, considering I probably saw 5 deaths in the first 4 or 5 years that I worked as a firefighter. So that's significant. We've had some independent evaluations done. Working with Bloomberg has been great. They give you a lot of positive support after you get some of their funding. But first responders in Huntington have significantly higher stress, PTSD, burnout over the general population, which is pretty much a no-brainer, right? So, of course, the onset of COVID-19 certainly exacerbated how we react. I remember at one point having one of my firefighters in my office, and I was telling him, it was the first time we'd gone away from masks, and we were going back to masks. He broke down crying in my office. He's like, I can't do it. I just can't do it anymore. Working shorthanded because you have so many firefighters quarantined, you don't have enough PPE, and good luck as a fire department getting PPE if you don't run EMS, because we were the last to get anything. For a small window, we told them to stage at any medical calls, life-threatening medical calls they went on, and put on your full PPE and your respirator, because that's full protection from COVID, because we couldn't get just basic anything there for a while, until all the hospitals and EMS agencies were supplied. That's how it had. So we had environmental effects, direct effects, and indirect effects. And obviously, when we started Compass, you know, we knew the overdoses were a problem, but what we found through working with small focus groups and, you know, people that are experts in the field, you know, that was the tip of the iceberg, and we needed to go to the bottom of the iceberg and look at what people were facing. And this is so true with all EMS and behavioral health people as well. You know, it's a mirrored image. Not that, even teachers, you know, name different, professions right now. This is very fitting for medical, okay? So Compass, what we've done is we hired a mental health coach and a physical fitness coach. They are embedded in police and fire, okay? We had small focus groups, okay? These were people that we could trust. They were, you know, kind of leaders, not by rank, but by status within both departments. And we asked them what they need, and anytime we try to provide education, we run it by the focus groups first and get their input on whether this would be accepted or not. What we found very early on is they were not willing to accept any education that we wanted to give them about substance use disorder or anything until we backed up and showed them that we appreciate them and that we're there for them as well. I actually had a firefighter look at me and said, "You love addicts more than you love me." And man, I'm telling you what, that just broke my heart. Not true, but that's their perception. So we have got to give them a safe outlet to deal with that and voice their opinion. No matter how difficult the conversation is, we've got to get it out, okay? So our mental fitness coach, she does ride-alongs. I gave both our coaches their name Amy, so we call them Amy Squared. And I gave them both bunker gear. They can ride on fire trucks. Now that wasn't just a given. You know, first we had them come into the fire stations and hang out with the guys. You know, because if Cynthia here is my captain on an engine company and we put a ride along with her, she is responsible for not only her crew but another person. Okay, so she has to trust that person first before she's responsible for that. So what we did is we made an unwritten policy. They can hang out with you if you feel comfortable taking care of them on a fire scene or an EMS scene. They are welcome to go with you. You as the leader on that crew it's your call. It's your call. And the Amy's are wonderful. They have the right personality. They both have trauma in their background. They understand. That's another hard nut to crack in first responder agencies. They don't accept outsiders a lot. I'm sure behavioral health is pretty similar. You don't accept outsiders. So our physical fitness coach, Amy, she has a degree in exercise physiology from Marshall University, and she kicks the fellas' butts. She's in her 40, and it is hilarious. You know, they come back from a workout and they are dragging. It's hilarious. And she'll do 2 or 3 workouts a day, and she's tall and skinny, and I wish she would have signed up to be a firefighter before the age of 36, because we would have loved to have her. So we do a lot of things. Those are your Amy's right there. They're great gals. But, you know, we do things for family members as well. And everything we offer comes from our small focus groups. Small focus groups in both police and fire guide this program. It is their program. As a fire chief, I had nothing to do with the program or what they do or not do. As the fire chief, I helped write the grant, and it's like here. The police chief did the same thing. We stepped back. Now, when it comes to policies and things, we work with them on changing how we will operate. The funding that we received from Bloomberg was fabulous. It was $1 million over 3 years, but it would not pay for a building, a workout center, a wellness center. Both police and fire really wanted their own wellness center. Not even wives are allowed in the wellness center, no kids. It is them and them only, and they've recently opened it up to retirees, because we find that stress continues on after retirement. So this wellness center that we built, we raised the funding ourselves. The mayor put in about $300,000. It cost about $700,000 to create this environment in this space, and it is on the 5th floor of the police department. Again, I could arrange for any of you to come and see it and see what they offer. The equipment is not what you would think. It's job-related equipment. Okay, so there's some standard equipment like your treadmills and bikes and things, but there's equipment designed specifically for police officers and firefighters. So it's a very unique situation. They also have, you know, we did the axe throwing. That was a big family outing they did once. Boy, that's tough. Or the escape rooms, things that family members can enjoy. They include kids of police and fire as well, so that they do feel appreciated. Okay. We have also partnered with other organizations to bring in needed things, you know, such as, you know, we have the cognitive behavioral therapy. You know, one of the things that we found, you know, we have always in Huntington had an employees assistance program coordinator. We went through St. Mary's Hospital, okay? So, a lot of the police and firefighters didn't trust that they won't tell the chief. And so there was a little bit of fear of losing their job if they had to go see a therapist. So, Amy Jefferson, our mental fitness coach, has worked with other agencies in the area to provide support, especially PTSD counseling for those individuals that need it. So we have broadened that, and we recognize that that's an issue within our ranks, and we wanted to fix it. Data collection, we use Marshall University a lot. Their exercise physiology lab is well loved by some of the guys that, you know, we're very competitive by nature, you know, on the front lines. My body composition is lower than yours. Kind of funny. So what impact has Compass had? Now, granted, we were starting to build this. We were awarded this, I think it was late October of 2018, okay? So we just got started, and then COVID hit, and it kind of shut us down for a little bit. So in 2021, we didn't have a lot of participation in what we were doing, but we couldn't do a lot for the family and the people that are responders at first. But once the mask mandates calmed down and people got used to what COVID was, we had a huge uptick in participants in this year, and I love that. You know, every time I go over to, like, we have massage chairs. That's one of the best things that ever happened. Now, I will also say this: there are some things that are low-lying fruit that don't cost money that you could do. Now, if you would have convinced me 10 years ago that yoga in fire stations would be a big hit, I would have laughed at you. Well, guess what? Yoga is a big hit in both the police and fire department. Okay? We have 3 of those all-body massage chairs. They are heavenly, and a lot of guys will just go over and just relax in the middle of a shift, and they're rejuvenated, especially after bad calls. So based on an independent evaluation, our job satisfaction is going up, okay? For the first time in years, we have over 200 applicants for the next test being given in Huntington, okay? We had a decline through the 2000s on the number of people who even applied to be police and firefighters, but now that number's going up. And I think word is getting out that, hey, they treat you pretty good in Huntington. And I hope that increases even more. So, positive effects. You know, one of the biggest things that I found interesting, that firefighters who frequently use Compass eat healthier, okay? Again, we're competitive by nature. And so that's another thing that I didn't think I would see in my lifetime. Looking back at it as a leader and trying to allow this and find relief for your people that you're responsible for, I've kind of looked at it as there's three groups, okay? There's the older or longer serving members of the profession that, you know, they have a lot of PTSD, they have a lot of stress. They're not gonna buy anything you give them, they're like, don't want any part of it. You got the newer guys, but this is the standard. You know, when we hire somebody new in Huntington, they spend at least 1 hour a day with the Amy's every day that they're in training. So this is normal for them. And then you have the movable middle, If you can show them, how positive this is, that they will jump on board and be behind you. So we are seeing that here in Huntington. So a couple of things, you know, we're even changing SOPs, and you know, if you're from a first responder background, you know how tough it is to change a standard operating procedure and actually have buy-in for it. Okay, so one of the first things that the firefighters came to me and asked for was a wellness policy, because firefighters work 24 hours at a time. So we developed a policy working with the union on where for an hour a day, they can take a truck one at a time, not all of them, one at a time, and there's plenty of hours throughout the day. There's 8 frontline apparatus. If they choose to, they don't have to, they can go to the wellness center and they can work out and be on delayed response for that hour during a shift, and that helps tremendously. It's just kind of like a rejuvenating event. We have free coffee, free munchies and everything. We also have showers built there so that they can take a shower at the facility. So a couple big things that we're striving for now, my buddy Greg Fuller is back as the fire chief, and he is very supportive of this program. We want to have a policy where it is mandated that all first responders in the city do a healthy well check with Amy J, as we call her, once a year. We want to standardize mental health care for first responders. It's just like going to the doctor and getting your annual blood work or your annual checkup. So we are finding that there is buy-in for this, and hopefully that will happen by the end of this year. So the future of Compass, okay? What we have done is, and this will continue, this will not stop. There is a group of stakeholders that meet on a regular basis. We have focus groups. Actually, we just were awarded a SAMHSA grant in the city to deal with substance use disorder. And a big part of that will be providing more training for our first responders. We will utilize the focus groups set up through Compass to determine what we should teach and how we should teach it. We will welcome their feedback, and I think that's key, because just cramming education down somebody's throat who's on the front line and is just seeing trauma day in and day out just doesn't work. They have to have a say at the table, and I think that's where this is key. If you do decide to go with this model, which I think I would love to see, I think a wellness center, a Compass program should be standard everywhere. But make sure that when you hire your internal coaches, that they fit in. And the guys actually met with the candidates and decided, you know, those focus groups, they helped choose who they rely on. And it's key. We have a lot of good buy-in right now. So we have done a couple little independent studies with Bloomberg to show that this model works, that they gave us the funding for. And we have found that this model will work with other careers, teachers, for instance. Behavioral health would be fantastic. I would love that. So there's also a couple people in here with me. We had the privilege of Michael Brummage introducing the state of West Virginia to mindfulness training with Richard Gorling. We are now, a couple in this class are actually going through a coaching class. Mindfulness has changed my life. It allowed me to stay calm as a fire chief for several years. And hopefully mindfulness training will be something that will be standard with not only EMS workers, but our mental health care workers, behavioral health, okay? If you would like any information about Compass, here's some, contact information for you. I'm very accessible, Cynthia will have the information, this PowerPoint, as will Carolyn, for you to use at any time. What we need to do as leaders, behavioral health and EMS leaders, unite our communities, which I think we have done very well in West Virginia. I think that's one thing we do exceptionally well. Thinking outside of the box. Compass was thinking outside of the box, and it was certainly out of our comfort zone. It's out of the comfort zone of a first responder agency to let go of that paramilitary control. Okay, that's kind of tough. We need to provide changing education as that product changes on the street. Had a good conversation with Jody earlier about that. So, you know, when naloxone first became the standard, it was 2 milligrams, and now it's 4 milligrams. Behavioral on the street is changing. With methamphetamines that is on the street, you have behavioral health issues. We have a lot of temporary psychosis. And when I talk to leaders in the area, like at PROACT, Project Hope is a big one. I'm like, how long is it taking people to become regulated and get that meth out of their system? And I'm getting reports of 4 to 6 months before people can focus on their recovery once they come off that product. So that's an ever-changing event that we need to work with. I think that EMS workers need de-escalation training, because once you give that naloxone and you knock the fentanyl off the receptors, now you're dealing with the meth that's on board, and you'll have behavioral issues. So, obviously we don't have enough help in the behavioral, health realm, but we can teach basic skill sets to keep people safe. And de-escalation, would be key for me, and that's one of the things we're gonna try to do with our SAMHSA grant when it comes to first responders in Huntington. Visit each other's spaces. Most EMS agencies will let you do.
Sure, it's a national organization.
Emotional
and
PPE.
Emotional PPE, and healthcare providers, behavioral health providers like myself have signed up to provide free telehealth counseling for people in those professions.
That's awesome.
And, you know, I hesitate to say it because I think there's last I checked, there are only 3 people in West Virginia that had signed up. Dr. Goody Kuntz up and myself and one other, I can't remember. But, and I don't need more referrals. But
You already said it,
well, I'm
sir.
old and I'm semi-retired, you know, but I think it's something worth looking into for healthcare providers. Now, I guess if you were a fireman who didn't, I guess they're all certified in EMT and those kinds of things. And I've had the fortunate ability to see one physician and two different EMS workers that are suffering. And it came out of the COVID stuff and the response, overwhelming kind of thing. So I would suggest people look into that. It's free. The services are provided free to the